BIC episode number 74. We're going to talk a little bit about the hockeys because our teams advanced. So congratulations to us. Yay, us. And then in addition to that, in basically a little roundtable conversation, we'll have a little bit of fun talking about unlicensed cards. It's a standard topic. It's been done a couple of times, but we'll have a little bit of fun with it. And I'll bring a little hashtag scholarship. We'll have a little fun with that. That and more in this episode of the BIC podcast. The gazing eyes of Brett Favre are upon us once again. We are back, and Eric is here, and he is cut down from 15 cartons of Marlboros down to a more comfortable, more suitable 3.5 cartons. Eric, how are you?
About 3.5 cartons in today. That's about right. I think that's a good number.
Excellent. I'm going to quickly talk about the live stream a little bit since we had a little bit of fun with that. But before I do, Brandon, Bobbles and Ball Cards, how are you?
Tired, but I'm here and motivated and productive.
Wow, and productive. Absolutely. Very important. But yes, if you checked out the live stream, we did have a little bit of fun with it. As soon as we started up, Eric did sound like he had 15 cartons of cigarettes prior. And as soon as Bobby and I were chatting about it, I was like, we're going to have a little fun with this. We're going to talk around it. So if you listen to it, you will notice it conspicuously. Even the chat started to notice. It's like, Eric really isn't saying anything. It's like, it's probably for the best. We controlled his minutes very carefully. We kept him there, but we brought him off the bench for a couple of productive minutes and then sent him back to the bench. He needed to be the sixth man on that show. Well, we did bring on Staven, Sports Cards there, a young man who collects some vintage, so he was able to contribute a little bit. Kind of didn't have it planned out, but it worked out very nicely. We got a chance to kind of unlock a new character and have a chance to chat with him a little bit about his vintage card collecting pursuits. Get a couple of thoughts from him, so it was a lot of fun. Glad that he was able to join us, and maybe he'll join us again down the road. Now, first of all, I want to start off talking a little bit about the hockeys. I will also tell you just off to start, obviously the first round is now over. We are now officially into the second round. The Bruins are playing right now as we speak. They're playing one of the Florida teams. They're playing the Panthers. Maybe they get scratched by Panthers. Who knows? But while that's going on, basically we'll talk a little bit about how the first round went for us. I will follow up on that during the live stream. We obviously already had all our picks. I actually pulled the clip that have all the picks, so I will compile everything. So the good news is that nobody got Eric and nobody got shut out. Everybody got at least one series correct. I can guarantee that everybody got one series correct. Beyond that, exactly how we did, I will give us the totals and the results and everything. We will give you the results on Friday, and we'll see exactly who was successful in pulling it off. So, and as we mentioned, Eric's Boston Bruins successfully managed not to be complete and total failures. Eric, hold on. No, that's it. So you managed to successfully beat a team that you have beaten every single other time since 1959, successfully playing the Harlem Globetrotters to their Washington Generals. And even though it took overtime, even though it took Game 7 overtime, you did successfully manage to not lose.
Yeah. Listen, I think everyone who watches us on, knows that I'm a pretty big Boston Bruins fan. Even if you're just tuning in for the first time, you look over my shoulders, you may guess that I like the Boston Bruins.
The hat, Eric, the hat.
Oh yes, the hat. Yeah.
You are literally wearing a Boston Bruins hat. Yes.
Yeah. They were absolutely horrible. For that entire series. They were embarrassing to watch and support. You had two, games 5 and 6 that could have ended the series. Game 6 in the first period, they had one shot on net. One shot on net in a possible series clinching game. Mm-hmm. They were absolutely horrible. I don't think they deserved to win that series because of how poorly they played. Toronto played pretty much the same level of hockey throughout the whole 7 games. With first Willie Nylander was missing, and then Austin Matthews was missing, and they still brought it to 7 games.
And I think they set, I could be mistaken, I think they set a record for least goals in a 7-game series or thereabouts. The fact that it got to 7 is actually hysterical. If you actually consider that they never were able to surpass, I think, 2 goals in any game at any point.
Very-
So they had no business being
very
in
well.
that series, let alone going to 7.
You know, Swayman was incredible. It's the only reason why they won that series, because everyone else wearing a Bruins sweater sucked. I think both Toronto goalies played well. Wall was a wall. He was incredible. Samsonov played really well in Game 7. I don't think there's too many goalies in the world that could have, saved that Pasta goal. So I predicted it would be Boston in 7. That's what happened. It shouldn't have gone 7, but it did. And now I'm predicting, of course, that they're going to get swept by the Panthers. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm. The sad part here, Brendan, is that this was a situation that was kind of a win-win for me. No matter who loses, I was going to laugh. Now, to be fair, the Maple Leafs. Yeah, that's the best we're getting out of it. So hopefully you saw the visual of it. But anyway, the point is that realistically, the Maple Leafs losing was pretty much standard operating procedure. To be honest, I even got a chance to chat with a couple of Leafs fans throughout the course of the series, especially as they were getting into Game 7. And like at this point, like it's almost like you can't hurt them. Like, there was nothing you could have done to hurt them. They've lost in Game 7s before. They've lost in Game 7s to the Bruins before. They've lost in Game 7s with a third period lead before. All of these things have literally been done. All of them. So it's one of those things where at this point, what were you going to do to them? Like, how do you hurt someone that has been hurt so many times? In reality, the only thing that would have been more entertaining for me would have been if Boston had lost, because it would have followed up the Hindenburg-like ending with that. And actually, Boston would have basically burned to the ground and possibly lost its, it would have been relegated from Canadian protectorate to protectorate of Alaska. You basically become an Alaskan protectorate, and they're all the way over there. So that's complicated. How they're going to take care of it. Like, I think they've got a standing army of penguins or something. And that would be your standing army. That'd be that's all you get.
Yeah. And I don't think the Bruins even deserve a standing army of penguins. If they had lost, they would have deserved to have lost. They played absolutely horrible. It was embarrassing. I've never seen anything like it, that in the playoffs and series clinching games, teams that come out that flat and uninterested, zero effort, playing against a team that had two of its biggest stars missing the majority, the majority of, I think they said that their core 4 played like a period and a half together through 7 games.
And even more complicated by the fact that Marner was missing for 7 straight games.
Yeah.
It was really unfortunate.
Marner scored that one goal on his knee. That was, other than the Pasta clincher, that Marner goal was a highlight. So I got to give him that. But I could see
the local sports radio is not feeling the highlight, Eric. Yeah. The local sports radio is basically like the pitchforks and torches are out.
Yeah, they're coming after him. He's the
yes. They want to run him out of town on a pike. They want to send him to Alaska, to the gulag as quickly with the quickness. It's been very entertaining to listen to. It really comes down to how much money those guys are making. Because they are all 10 million. They've got 10 million plus players. So Tavares is right at the end of his contract. And by the way, I won't bore all of you with the Maple Leaf stuff too much. But again, being local, I do hear it. I get to hear it in the sports radio and the local coverage. But obviously, Tavares is right at the end of his contract. People are less bitterly angry with him because in reality, he played well during the time in his contract that they figured he would be at his best. They knew that the contract would age poorly and the very end would be a little difficult. He was still, obviously he doesn't deserve what he's getting paid currently, but for a while there in that contract, he did. So they're okay with it, but this is coming to an end and more than likely it should end soon. But the Marner one is one that they have less excuses for because he is a younger player and he didn't show a lot of heart and they weren't too impressed with his performance, especially given the critical playoff games. Austin Matthews definitely had some kind of an illness or an injury or something going on there, especially in the latter portion of the series. Nylander was only able to play 4 games. So those guys get a little bit of a pass. They really didn't have too much issue because when they played, they at least were able to be effective. So I think most people were reasonably,
Nylander
if you're going to retain somebody, it's those two.
I don't think Matthews played well at all. I don't know what they haven't come out and said exactly what was going on with him, but I don't think he played well at all. Nylander, when healthy, he played great.
Yeah, he only played the 4 games. And Matthews had moments. The thing with Matthews is he's only predominantly a goal scorer. He's not an overall player. But even in the game 7, he set up the 1 goal. So it's one of those things, like he was still able to do a couple of plays, and that's after it was very clear he was diminished. Like there was an issue of some kind, and he was still able to do something. If nothing else, he was able to at least try. That's basically what he gets credit for. He gets credit like clearly something was wrong, and he was still able to go out there and try to do something. So that's really what it came down to. But anyway, so yes, congratulations. Little horns for the Boston Bruins successfully avoiding a second straight Hindenburg-like ending. So you got that going for you. So we'll see what happens going forward with that. But there was another game 7 we can speak of briefly, Brandon. The Dallas was able to successfully defeat the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Yes. And they did so, the defending Stanley Cup champions. Not an easy draw, a very tough draw to start off with. And Brandon, despite your lack of confidence, Odger played excellent. There was an excellent, because they didn't score. Like literally, they game 6, they did not. The only thing he didn't do was score, and maybe he needed to score, or they would have won it in 6.
I didn't get to watch game 6. I was out of town and exhausted, and I had to get up early the following morning, so I didn't get to see it. But before we get into the game, the series, the players, all of that, we need to recognize Pete DeBoer, the coach, because the man has literally tied Red Auerbach, one of the greatest coaches of all time, 8-0 in Game 7 series now. That's pretty damn impressive. So, shout out to the coach for accomplishing that. But I think, and I kind of said it in the Discord, shout out to Vegas's coach. Thank you for pulling and benching Logan Thompson, because that kid, like, put him on your radar if you're a hockey fan. If he ever gets the opportunity to be like the main starter on a team, he was so damn aggravating watching, because it was like when you thought Dallas was going to score, he just was making incredible saves. And then when they sat him and put in Hill, which I get the move. Hill carried him last year through to the Stanley Cup and everything. But it was like when they did that, and then Dallas was able to string together back-to-back wins in Vegas, it obviously changed the whole series because it was tied up, but it was like, I think they felt more comfortable with Hill at goalie than they did with Thompson. Even though, the game 6, they didn't score, but I don't know. I'm just glad they sat Thompson because that dude was aggravating.
I can understand what you're saying, but I think this is where I should point out, in the spirit of, hashtag, scholarship and transparency, you do know that Aiden Hill had a lower goals against and a higher save percentage. He was statistically better in every way.
He just felt like they could score on him when Thompson
but they didn't.
Was in
they
there.
Scored less. They actually scored less, physically less.
Okay, but as you just stated about me being harsh on Ottinger, they were
who
scoring
actually played
more,
very well,
so to speak, on Thompson, but yet Ottinger was allowing more goals. So my point is, Thompson was making some saves where it appeared that like Dallas outplayed Vegas damn near the entire series. Again, I can't speak on game 6. I don't know what happened there. But the other games, they outplayed them. They looked like the better team. But in those first couple games, they could not score on Thompson. Like, even though you're saying, well, they allowed goals or whatever.
They scored 10 goals in 4 games.
He didn't even play 4 games. He played 3.
Logan Thompson, games played 4. Tell NHL.com.
I thought they benched him after game 3 when he lost in Vegas.
I'm looking at NHL.com right now. 4 games. 4 games started. 2 wins, 10 goals against.
I thought
921 save percentage.
I could have swore Hill was in on game 4. But anyway. Maybe my mistake, because I did think Hill was in. I don't even know if I got to watch game 4, to be honest. Because
that's fine. But I'm saying I'm just using the
all I know is I have to listen to this guy tell me about what a huge Dallas fan he is, And he's like, maybe I didn't watch game 4. I didn't watch
Eric,
game
I was up at 3:30 in the morning on Thursday. I was up at 5:30 on Friday. I was up again at 5:30 on Saturday. I've got 2 graduations that we are planning to do. And when games are at 10:30 at night, yes, I have been freaking exhausted and I have not been able to catch them all.
So you have excuses, is what you're saying.
I think the problem is
reasons.
that Brandon was watching the game and he thought that he was watching Thompson. He was actually watching Joseph Wall. And Joseph Wall stopped basically everything.
No, I didn't catch any of those. I can't. What night was game 4? Because that would if it was Wednesday, then I did not get to watch that one. Let me look, because that would explain a lot.
And when you take a look, I'll give a quick update since we'll put it there. So Ottinger for the 7 games ended up giving up 14 goals against, 925 save percentage, solid. Goals against 195, pretty good. And he got an assist. He got one more point than the other 2 goalies combined. Come on, Eric. That's a performance for the ages. Seemed good. I don't know.
I watched some of the Dallas Vegas games. I thought he played really well. And
I thought he was solid.
And I watched the
entire Monday night
period of game 7. And I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. And even the game they lost in game 6, they gave up 1 goal. The second goal was an empty netter. So it's like it was 1 goal. I thought
like Swayman, I mean, he lost 3 games, right? Well, actually lost 2. I forget. No, he lost 2 because Allmark lost 1. So he lost 2 games. But he let like 1 goal go in. I mean,
and he got 2 penalty minutes. So even our goalie's tougher than theirs. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the kid is. If this continues, which
he has to be enforcer. He's got to score points, Brandon. Like Ottinger's doing everything, man. You got the J-Rob pump. I'm here for the Ottinger pump. Let's go.
He got an assist on. I can't remember which goal it was, but he got an assist too. I do know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And you were correct.
It was
Monday night, and it was Monday night. I fell asleep during the 3rd period, but I did catch that game because I remember Rupe's empty netter. It was a nice about 3/4 length of the ice shot. So I stand corrected. Thompson was in for 4 games, but he just felt he was making some incredible saves. Maybe maybe that series would have been freaking 4 games, like sweep, if those first 2 we could have got some of the shots that he was stopping. But I was frustrated with Ottinger, but I have to say he settled down. Games 1, he looked shakier. Game 2, he didn't look terrible. But yeah, last night that was a little hectic. Not gonna lie, it was like they were getting momentum, trying to put pressure to pull away, and it just stayed close. But which was it, game 4 where they were playing keep away? I can't remember if that was game 3 or 4 when they had like the lead going into 3rd period and they were just playing defense. That was the boringest period to watch because it was a 1-goal game and they would get the puck and just flip it down the ice. And I knew that it was a strategy and I knew it was working, but it was boring as hell to watch.
Oh, Eric, I gotta send Brandon tape of the late 90s stars. Let me tell you about dump and chase for years.
I Lapper was in the Discord, like they're putting them, or they're what was it? He said something about like they're playing risky right now or something like that. And I was watching, I was like, I get why they're doing this, but damn, this is boring. Like, because it was a good strategy, They were basically clock killing the whole thing and playing really tough defense, but it was just like, man, where's the action?
Well, in the play, look, I teased. So we'll move on here from the hockey in a minute here. But just to give part of the reason I enjoyed teasing Brandon during the Robertson pump the last couple of years was that Robertson is a great player and I enjoy his game. But what I want to see, and we'll see what happens in the long run, and he had his moments, but a Robertson type player is the kind of guy where in the play, and this happened to Marner, by the way. Marner in the regular season is a tremendous player because he's incredibly skilled. But what happens in the playoffs is the space shrinks. So you don't have as much room to maneuver. The other team starts to get a lot tighter with the checking. So a lot of great offensive players, like they get stifled. It locks them up a little bit because you got to figure out like, okay, now you got to create your own room. Before you had more room, now you got to figure out how to make do with less room and try to see if you can create something.
This is not in any form a pump, even though Eric, you can do the motion if you want. But I will say, outside of the offensive and the scoring opportunity, you can see that Robertson as an overall player is growing a bit. I even told my wife, I don't remember if it was game 2 or 3, but he was actually hitting. Like the first couple of years, he would do everything to avoid contact, and he was actually laying hits. He was blocking shots, giving his body up. He looks to be better at stealing the puck. And he also looks like his puck handling has gotten a little bit better. His speed, he still looks like he is about to lose his balance when he tries to skate fast. But overall, I did see a little bit difference in play of him this year than the past. I'm not pumping him. Like, I'm not sitting here saying Wyatt Johnston is the kid that
I was going to say. I wanted to talk about offensive star Wyatt Johnston. That's
yeah, Wyatt Johnston is the kid that people should be playing. And I'm going to say Stankoven, although he had some questionable shots and stuff, I like that he's young and out there, and he was actually setting up and making some plays and everything, and like in the mix. But that dude is tiny. Like, he is short as shit. So, but no, I think Robertson, you can see him maturing a little bit as a player overall. He did score a couple goals, which was nice to see.
Yeah,
that didn't
happen.
He was also
-5, so we're gonna need to tighten up that defense a little bit. He was a -5.
He was part of the reason they scored that goal last night. He made a bad play and couldn't recover in time, and left the guy out on the island, and they got a pretty easy score.
There's still work to do. The point is, there's still work to do. There is opportunities to, and he's still a young guy. There's opportunities to improve. There is room for improvement. So, work in progress. We'll see what happens. It's all right. He's still in his early 20s. He's a young guy. Now, quick before I transition over to discussing the other series, we'll get into them a little bit more as we move further a little bit. There was nothing else that really stood out to me. I was only paying really close attention to those two series, one locally and then one for my team, obviously. So I don't know, Eric, anything in the other series that stood out to you? I was kind of fixating on those two series personally. So I don't know. Was there anything that stood out to you? McDavid's 12 million assists.
Yeah.
McDavid had all the assists.
Well, the Rangers, which I also predicted, I think they're going to have a good playoff. They're looking really strong, but I still think Colorado is probably the favorite.
Well, that'll be the next round. So I won't get too far ahead because we don't, like I said, we've given you enough hockey's talk for now, but it will be interesting. I will say Dallas has a tough draw this year because the way it works is you have the defending champs. That was a tough draw to start off with. Colorado's a great team, so they're obviously there's a very strong second opponent. They're not the old
Edmonton.
Yeah, they're not in Edmonton, but right now the way Edmonton's playing, yeah, I could very easily see them being in the Western Conference Final. So hypothetically, and again, still more work to do. The series hasn't started yet, but these are not the Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, Patrick Waugh, Colorado, but they are talented. There's a lot of very extremely talented players on this team, so you can't look past them because they're excellent. So you've got a tough draw to start off with, defending champs, then a young Colorado team who's got a ton of talent, and then potentially Edmonton, who feels like they have to make it. This is like their opportunity. This is their chance to potentially run the table if they can. They can certainly beat Vancouver, and they'll be competitive against whoever they face in the West. So this could be their shot. And right now, McDavid is, at his playmaking best right now. He can score. We already know he can score, but right now he's made it very clearly his mission to set everybody up. So it's one of those things like he's literally leading right now. If I removed his one goal because he only took one shot to get a goal, he'd still be leading the entire playoffs and scoring just on his assists. He's got more assists than everybody else has points. So like clearly he's decided this is the way he wants to operate. But if you flip the switch on him, he scored 60 goals last year. So he's perfectly capable of doing such a thing and flipping the switch if he wants to. But Drysdale is playing great. Hyman is playing great. So they've got a lot of things going on. So Edmonton will be interesting. They're not completely balanced because obviously they have weaknesses. None of these teams are flawless, but they've certainly got a lot of offensive firepower that they can bring to bear. They won't have the Maple Leaf problem of not being able to score 2 goals, more than 2 goals. So under the right circumstances, they can score a lot more than 2 goals if they really get moving downhill. So real quick before I transition over, I want to thank AMG Collectibles, amgcollectibles.ca, and the AMG Collectibles YouTube channel. Doing another podcast episode this following week. We'll be talking about a couple of things, a couple of items that came in the shop, also talking about some upcoming products. So we'll definitely have a conversation about that, and we'll get a little bit more of an update on kind of where things sit now a couple weeks post-Expo. So we'll definitely have some fun with that. So I want to thank them. Scrolling ticker across the bottom of the screen and links in the description so you can check them out there. So thank you to AMG for supporting the podcast and the channel. Now, I did want to talk about a little topic not related to this. Kind of, I would say, a friend of the channel and also someone who's been very supportive. Victor, the rookie card specialist, made a video basically the other day. I want to say, was actually a day ago. And it was relating to 2024 Topps Chrome Basketball. So I'll include a link to it in the description. Victor has made clear his feelings on kind of unlicensed cards a little bit. So I kind of want to use his video as kind of the launching point to a discussion on the infamous unlicensed card thing, because it crops up every now and then. I'm not super concerned about it. Obviously, in the past, I've collected a lot. I collect some Leaf cards. They're unlicensed, obviously. And I collect some cards from Panini and Baseball, and they've got some unlicensed product as well. But I think it's kind of interesting to look at it through the prism of, since Topps Chrome Basketball is coming out, the 2024 edition, you got a Wemby card in there, and they've got the exclusive with Wemby to do the autographs. So obviously, people are excited about Topps Chrome. But since the license isn't fully realized right now, while Topps can produce a Wemby card, they can produce an autographed Wemby card. They can even call it a rookie card and put the logo on it. But obviously, they don't have the full licensing. They don't have the capability of being able to show it with the logos. And obviously, that creates kind of a little funny thing. And I think some people, a little bit of what I got from some videos, including Victor's, is that some people seem very excited about this, but at the same time, it feels a little hypocritical, given that sometimes they're lukewarm on unlicensed over here, but then they seem excited about this one because it's an opportunity to get a Wemby card. So it's kind of an interesting little thing. So what I want to do is have a little discussion on this. There's a couple of historical examples I'll give you that will add a little bit of fun to this. But before I do, so why don't I start with you, Brandon? Just in general, do you want to give just your personal thoughts on kind of the whole unlicensed thing, how you perceive it from your side?
I'm kind of neutral to it because I mean, a lot of my tailors are Panini cards because they had a lot of cool cards of him in 2015. And, Leaf, you mentioned them. They make some, I think Leaf makes overall one of the best quality of product. Now, maybe it's because they do less, so they take more care, or whoever they have print their product is better. I don't know. But it all comes down to, you mentioned the excitement of Topps Chrome coming back and the hatred of Panini and everything else. And I think there was this big appreciation and love for Topps Chrome and Topps Finest and all that stuff back in the day. And it kind of sucked when it went away. And, people began to hate Panini because of all the parallels. But I'm kind of looking at this as, it would have been nice to have them both competing along the way. I don't know that it's going to be as special just bringing it back, because Topps itself has so many parallels too. So you're kind of just putting a different brand name on the same product in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, needing the logo on the card or anything else, really, I think here, let's look at this. Here's a Bowman Chrome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just got this in. Outside, if you cover that up right there, you see nothing really except maybe the little sleeve patch.
Mm-hmm.
What's any different? There's not much difference than having a Leaf pajama card or whatever this Topps things, however they're going to proceed them. They could go the LeBron rookie route, have pictures of the players in suits. He was holding up a jersey, but the 03 LeBron Topps card, he's in the white suit. So there's different routes that they could go with it. Personally, I think people are just fed up with Panini and their lack of give a shit, but I don't know that this is going to be the solution, and it will be interesting to see the acceptance of one versus the other.
I think that's the valid question. I'm going to come back around to that. I want to touch on that again in a minute. But Eric, just high level thoughts on the unlicensed thing. I'll give quickly my thoughts, and then I'll take it straight to you. I'm kind of in the middle as well, because obviously I buy cards. I clearly have no issue with it. I've literally got a box, a 3-row box of old in the game and be a player, but there's a big chunk of it that are the Leaf and their version of in the game and that piece of it, and then also some of the ultimates, in the game ultimates, and those ones. Well, those ones are all in the post licensing time period, and they did all that stuff. So clearly I don't have an issue in my collection having these kind of items. I've got some very fun patch cards that would not have been possible or available were it not for that. We did a little showcase thing in the Discord. Today was my day, and I showed up a bunch of pictures and stuff. One of the cards that was kind of a fun one that's a little bit more unique that is available because of it, Leaf Pearl as a brand and a product. It's a hockey product, but they've got in it a dual patch auto of Mike Modano and Tony Romo. And the connection is Dallas. That's the connection. That's the reason why otherwise there would be no Mike Modano, Tony Romo card. Why would there be one? So that's a situation where they were able to put together a card, given what they were able to do with it, that would not have existed under Topps or anybody else, because they probably wouldn't have the licenses at the same time. But being it's an unlicensed product, they just needed the sticker autographs and a couple of game used pieces, and there you go. There's a card. So just unlicensed thoughts from your perspective, collecting perspective, whatever you
want. Excuse me. One, collect what you like. If it's out there and you want to collect it and add it to your collection, by all means do so. I don't care who makes it or whatever.
Especially if it has a Kraken in the background or a leprechaun, that's the best.
Something ridiculous like that. If you like that, collect it. If you don't like it, do not collect it. The question, though, when you involve Victor in your conversation, it's what is a rookie card?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a firm believer that it's not a rookie card unless it's a licensed product.
Now, I want to make a distinction. You're talking about fully licensed.
Yeah.
Not one licensee, because the Players Association by itself, we're not counting that, correct? Just so we're on the same page. Okay.
Right. Fully licensed. That's, they put the effort, they put their money where their mouth is. They're doing it right. And that's a rookie card. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't cards out there of players that, are from their rookie year or even before, that aren't worth collecting. But, here's probably the best example. That's an 84 Jordan, right? Star card, not his rookie. But this card right now is for sale for $124,999.
Now, an important distinction on that. You're talking about the 84 Star card. Here's the interesting thing about this. The Star card is fully licensed. It is 100% licensed. Players Association and League. It could not be any more licensed. The issue with that one was the distribution method. It was the fact that it came in the team bags. If it came out of, wax packs, there literally would be no discussion. There'd be no debate. It was the way it was distributed. That is a Bulls logo, a Bulls name, Michael Jordan, that it could not be any more licensed. It is 100% licensed.
I don't collect basketball, but, I've known about these cards for a long time.
Yeah, I'm just filling in the gaps just so that everybody's on the same page.
Well, hold on. Give me a second. I don't collect them. I don't know the history of them. I was always under the impression that they weren't licensed. So that's why I made that comparison. If I'm wrong, then thank you for educating me and teaching me something new at 50 years old. But, so why isn't that considered a rookie card then?
The distribution method. It was just that it was because it came in team sets. That was the argument for the longest time back in '84. It was because it didn't come in wax packs. It was because it came in these team sets that you could buy, and because it was considered that, and it was regionally available, it was a little murky. So not national distributed, not in a regular wax pack.
Yeah.
That was the controversy. And at some point, they made a line in the sand and said, "Oh, I'm not going to consider that a rookie card." But the licensing, that was never the issue at Star. They had the licensing, full rights to print NBA cards.
It boils down
I'm
to
not changing my definition then. I appreciate the education. Always like to learn new things, especially about stuff I don't collect. Because I definitely don't know it all, obviously. But I'm not going to change my definition with the new information. If it's fully licensed, that should count as a rookie card.
And a lot of people will argue for it. And that's where that one has gained some momentum, because people are like, but it's got the logo and it's got the team nickname, and there were no compromises made on the image. It's Michael Jordan in 1984. It was before 86 Fleer, and it's got the Bulls logo and the nickname and everything else that you could ask for. It's all there.
Well, here's a question, and to take it a step further, and you mentioned Leaf, and then obviously we have Panini examples with baseball. They have the rights, for football and basketball, but there's always this argument, and to go back to Eric in the explanation, it goes back to, I guess, the rules that were set forth by your favorite company, Beckett, and what they determined to be a rookie and not a rookie, and that's kind of what has laid out the concrete foundation of what everybody puts in solidity of what is right or wrong. I think some of those should be reviewed and revised, because collecting is much different than when those rules were set in place. Obviously, with the online releases and everything else of licensed products, but that's neither here nor there. But to my point, Leaf has that Trinity product that's really nice, that has patches and stuff in it. And we're talking about unlicensed stuff and whether or not we're for or against it. But just because it's not licensed doesn't mean it can't have patches. Now, this card does not say Washington Nationals anywhere on it, but it's obvious with that patch of what it is. Here's another example on this one. The big curly W from the chest of the jersey there. And it just does, as you see, have the rookie logo on it. So although these are unlicensed cards, they still find ways to incorporate the MLB patches into them to where it's obvious what the team is. So,
sure.
I guess the argument or the question, the debate is, well, is it a rookie card because it doesn't have the logos on the uniform? And, some are all against, unless it is major league uniforms in the photo, whatever. That's the only thing that can be a rookie card or collected or whatever. And I'm a big fan of even the minor leagues and baseball and the collegiate, like the collegiate national treasures and immaculates and those things in football and stuff, because let's be honest, if we're going to have fun and collect players we enjoy and cards that we think are cool, why not get some of the cards with the best patches you can get at the best price?
Sure.
I mean, I've always said that. Like, there's some cool stuff out there, and those they're reasonably priced.
Sure. Now let's have a little fun. I'm going to show one card, but then we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to throw a little monkey wrench. We're going to have a little fun, throw a little wrinkle into this. So this is from the Panini Chronicles. I've talked about this in the past. That's the Soto. And this one's the green version, numbered to 50. I've actually got a couple of these here. And they're nice cards. To me, I like it because it's prism. It's a nice color of the prism on it, and these are numbered. But obviously, these are unlicensed. But at the same time, you look at the image, it's kind of Soto facing his back to you. It's a little tough to tell because realistically, a lot of the logo and a lot of it is kind of obscured. It's the angle of the photo, similar to the Wemby and kind of the angle they're using where he's holding the basketball and everything, but you can't actually see the logo. But I do want to have a little bit of fun here. Let's do a little hashtag scholarship, a little historical. Since obviously Eric gave the example of the 84 Star, and we added in that little information there. But in that case, it was fully licensed, but it was the distribution method that created the controversy. That's a different conversation. But let's talk about one where it's not fully licensed. And here's a little bit of an interesting little historical weird tidbit. And I'll include a link in the description to you from an article that covers this and talks about it at length from Sports Collectors Digest. If you want to go a little old school, a little sport SCD. All right, let me ask a question. I'm going to show a card, and I would like, if you gentlemen could you identify what this card is? What is that?
OJ, rookie.
That is a 1970 Topps OJ Simpson, the OG back then, not swell fella before not swell fella was cool. You know, different thing.
Well, he was a swell fella until he wasn't.
Until he wasn't, yes. But so 1970 Topps, you know, it's got Buffalo Bills there, running back, right? So this is the OJ rookie card, yes?
Mm-hmm.
From here, I haven't seen the back, but from here, that's what it looks like.
That's the back of a 1970 Topps card. Are we satisfied? That's the rookie card?
From here, yeah, without further inspection, it looks good.
Sure, cool. Question, where's the Buffalo Bills logo? It says Bills on there, but I'm just curious.
One. What about the Cleveland Browns?
The Buffalo
logo?
Bills. The Buffalo Bills definitely had a logo. No, they had a logo 100%.
No, I was joking there.
Yeah, but here's the question: where's the Buffalo Bills logo?
I don't know.
On his helmet that isn't on his head.
You want to have a little bit of fun? Go through the rest of the 1970 Top set, and what you're going to notice is that there are no logos. And you know why there are no logos? Because starting in 1970, ye olden vintage days, the Players Association agreed to that. The NFL did not agree to that. So the NFL did not license Topps to make cards from the year 1970. You're going to enjoy this one, Eric. From the year 1970 until the year 1981, 11 years, they were not allowed to put logos on Topps football cards. 11. So that means I asked earlier if you needed to have both the NFL and the Players Association licensing to be considered a rookie card. So this is not an O.J. Simpson rookie card. It never was. It's all a lie. And you know what else is a lie? You know what else is a lie? The Joe Montana rookie. That's 1981. No logos. And I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to show you a picture. Because I'm actually going to do the Joe Montana one, by the way, is more egregious, Eric, because when I show the picture, I want to show you something. I think we're going to have, like I said, I wanted to have a little fun with this. We're going to do a little hashtag scholarship, right? Let's do a little bit. Okay. Here's the 1981 Joe Montana. This is the 1981 Topps Joe Montana. We're familiar with this one. Question. Okay. What's missing on the side of his helmet? He's got his helmet there. You can see the helmet. Where's the logo, Eric? It's supposed to be right on the side right there, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't see it. One or really paid much attention to it. So, I mean, I've seen it. I can recognize it, you know, in passing as a Montana rookie, but I've never analyzed it. I've never noticed that it wasn't there.
Yeah. Now, here's where we're going to have a little fun. So that's 1981. So for this one, unfortunately, you're going to have to use the visuals because the visuals are, or you can Google these cards and it'll help out. Okay. So Eric, here's 1982. What do you see right there?
Yeah.
Boom. There's a big old 49ers right on the side of it, smack dab where it wasn't on the other card, was it? 1982, the logos are back. 11 years.
Which doesn't make sense on the rookie because it literally says 49ers at the bottom.
So this is kind of the murky thing about this. So I want to use this historical example because it wasn't 1 or 2 years. It was 11 seasons. So I started with the OJ. There's a lot of headshots here minus Sans helmet. Then there's action shots and different things that kind of got a little murky there for a couple of those years. But if we go with this concept, and I'll quote from this article here. I'm going to quote from the article for a second, and I'll get back to the cards we're talking about. So in 1970, so here, in early 1970, the NFL and AFL merged as did their respective players' associations. The 69 Topps had featured 26 players with their helmets, including logos. In 1970 and continuing through 1981, Topps did not have a license agreement with the NFL to use logos. However, they did apparently attain an agreement with the NFL Players Association in 1970 to show the players in uniform with numbers, but without logos. Consequently, players were either shown without helmets or logos were airbrushed off the helmets by an increasingly busy group of Topps artists. The Topps hand-drawn logos morphed further into chubby generic linemen in the 1971 set. So here, if we go with this concept, of it's got to be fully licensed. The OJ is not a rookie card. Basically, his entire career, he doesn't have a license card by this definition. And the Joe Montana one, his rookie card that we know it, is not a rookie card because he doesn't get a logo back until 82 and in his the action photo. And what about Walter Payton? He doesn't have a rookie card either. What about everybody else in the 1970s that's on a Topps card? Eric, the 70s was a lie. It was all a lie.
Well, it's also interesting. Eric showed the Jordan Star, and people argued about that. And obviously that card has value or whatever. But you fast forward and look at a couple guys from 86, Reggie White, Steve Young. I think Herschel Walker might fall into it too, but he's not in 86, or his rookie's not in 86, but the USFL cards. Like people, look at the Young and the White and everything, and the USFL is their rookie. So it's kind of like people pick and choose what they want to accept as, and I'm sure the Wembyama, you'll have some who stick with the prism and some who will say that because the auto is in the top chrome that'll be his card or whatever. But Eric's gonna have all of them.
Absolutely. But so the reason I brought that up is, number one, it's a fun little historical quirk. Eric, did you know that one? 11 years, not one or two, 11 seasons.
I'm learning a lot tonight, and I love to learn stuff like this. And I think it's fun that at my age, who's someone who's been collecting since 1988, can learn not only one thing but two things in the same evening of discussing this hobby with people. And that's what I like about this. Not just this setup, but this hobby. It's this information out there if you open your ears and shut your mouth sometimes and not think you know it all. There's just so much information. And yeah, I am well versed, in hockey stuff, but I don't know a lot about the history of football cards or the pre-Jordan rookies and everything. So I love the fact that we can get together and have these discussions, and I love learning new stuff. It makes the hobby interesting still, even after all these years, So
here's the question for you though, Eric.
Yeah.
Let's say you collected football.
Yeah.
Would learning that change your opinion?
Which leads, by the way, it's a great question because it leads into kind of my point for bringing it up. Other than I thought it was interesting, and I thought I would bring it to the table because I thought it'd be an interesting thing. I think it may blow a couple people's minds to know that it wasn't just a 1 or 2 year phenomenon. It was a consistent theme for over a decade, and it brings up some very interesting subsequent questions. But first, Eric, do you want to answer that question first? Would it change your perception if you were a collector of football?
My gut is no. I would say that the hobby and card collecting has progressed more of a business. I mean, remember back then, all they were doing is trying to sell bubble gum. They weren't interested in spending too much money on licensing and all that. They just wanted to move bubble gum. That's it. There were candy factories that came up with an idea to move this stuff, just like tobacco said, hey, how can we sell more tobacco? Let's put baseball cards in them, and hockey cards. And so nowadays it's just about the cards, and it is, a very, expensive business. I think we have to have more standards today than maybe we did in the past when they were trying to sell bubble gum. Now, you have to pay hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a box of cards that can have like 4 to 6 cards in them. When before it was a quarter to get some bubble gum and you got some cards with your gum.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm comfortable with being flexible on this, even with the new information, because of the purpose of cards in 1970 versus the purpose of cards today. But I still
So
say
what?
collect what you like. I have Leaf cards. I have a whole bunch of I love in the game. Absolutely love. I just posted something on Instagram today from in the game that I picked up recently. Love that stuff. But I don't think in modern times unlicensed stuff should be considered rookie cards.
Now, that's kind of what I wanted to lead into a thought here. So, like I said, part of the reason I wanted to bring it up is because number one, it's an interesting historical curiosity because it's a thing that happened. But number two, in the years since, everyone, like I showed at the very beginning, I showed that 70 tops OJ. It is accepted that this is the OJ Simpson rookie card. The Joe Montana card that I showed, the 81, is accepted as the Joe Montana rookie card. The Walter Payton is accepted as rookie card, but all of those technically would be unlicensed. Now, this isn't meant to, realistically, it isn't meant really to undermine Victor's point, because one thing that he has been good about covering is that there is this murkiness as time changes because different stuff happens. But here's what I would pose to you. I think part of the reason we kind of accept it as a rookie card is because you didn't really have a choice. Your alternative is there is no rookie card. Or, the Joe Montana rookie card is actually 1982, even though he has a card in 81, even though it's tops versus tops. So your alternative. Or with OJ, maybe he doesn't have a rookie card. Or Walter Payton doesn't have one. Like, until many years later, even though they have cards all the way along the way, which doesn't make any sense. I think out of necessity, it forced you to kind of just accept that this is what it was at the time, because that was what was going on. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fleer is the one who actually had the right to the logos. So they made logo cards, not player cards, logo cards. So they had the logos, and Topps had the players and the team nicknames and could show them. So you had two companies producing cards with NFL licenses, but you had two different licenses, and each one had its own. So it goes back a lot to very similar to what was going on here, except, and I think this is what makes the modern day example not work apples to apples. You had Panini here who had the Players Association, but you have Topps who has both. I think we would look at this differently if, Panini is doing this and Topps couldn't show Juan Soto. They could only show a logo of the Washington Nationals. If it had been an equivalent thing, then this would suddenly maybe be a rookie card in a lot of avenues, because, well, you don't have a choice. Your alternative is there is no rookie card, because that's what happened in the 70s into the early 80s. And at that point, you just kind of accept it because it's a very specific era where those were your options. And then going forward, yeah, exactly. And then going forward, you've got a different thing. Once you got the option, maybe
from
to have
81.
Yep, exactly.
So you've
got the logo cards. You've got those logo cards with the helmets, but no player. And then you got Topps, who's got the player, but no logos. They either have to airbrush them out or do some funky stuff in order. And sometimes they would use action photos to try to get around a little bit. Well, it's an action shot, so it's not like a regular. It's multiple players. It's not just logos. So there were a lot of fun little tricks for many years that they played in order to make that work. That's what makes it very interesting. Today, obviously, when we have the option for both, I think we can agree. Everyone prefers to have both. If you have your choice and both options are available to you, you would rather have the fully licensed everything. But I think it is interesting to know that through history, we've had these different times where all of a sudden you kind of have, so is it? And so what's the problem here? In the 84 Star is a good example of this too. In that one, you got both. And the contention was that you didn't put it in packs. And because you didn't put it in packs, suddenly it didn't work.
Can I pose a quick question to both of you guys? And I
Sure,
know, Eric, you're mostly into your vintage, and it doesn't affect in the hockey space. But something I struggle with on, like, especially more in the modern day, the way the players are moving teams so often now. And if you want to, and I'll just throw Soto out there as an example. If you want to team collect and or player collect, I don't particularly want Juan Soto cards outside of the Nationals uniforms, or on a different angle, like CJ Abrams is now a Washington National, but his rookies are most of them are in his San Diego Padres uniforms. So do you think that, and I don't know how many people collect that way or even care, but do you think that can take some away of the perception or the need for folks and maybe separate the ones that have to have the logos and everything and the ones that are kind of like neutral on it? Because again, I would rather have a card that I just think is cool, or of the player in the team that I enjoy or whatever, rather than just, I don't need a CJ Abrams rookie if he's in, San Diego Padres. I don't know if that like affects you guys in that way. Like your Medanos, I know you have a few pieces where he's not in the stars, but um is there any player, Eric, that you collect that you would only want them in one uniform?
Yeah, Ray Bork. I don't go after any of his Avalanche stuff. Some things have slipped in, but I know he was only in Colorado for 2 years, but with card companies, you could still produce thousands of cards within 2 years, but I don't go after Bork and Avalanche stuff. I just, collect him in Bruins.
Makes sense. So I'll answer that question in that if it's a player collection, I really don't worry about it. Even when I go to the oldest player collection I have, one of the oldest player collections I have was Joe Carter. So when I did my history of player collections, Joe Carter was one that I collected. Joe started with the Chicago Cubs. Then he went to the Cleveland Indians. Then he went to the San Diego Padres. Then he eventually wound up in the Blue Jays. So he actually had a couple of different stops along the way. And then he had a couple of stops after Toronto, but that was kind of towards the end of his career. So I guess depending on who you ask, you can associate different times in his career depending on what it is. But he bounced around a little bit. But he had success. It was an interesting situation because at the time he became the first guy to have 100 RBIs for 3 different teams in 3 consecutive seasons, because he played in Cleveland, had success there. San Diego, he was a 100 RBI guy. And then Toronto, he was a 100 RBI guy. And he came in that deal with Roberto Alomar that obviously, led to the championships, which was great. So that never bothered me right from the get-go. That was like an early collection that I worked on. But Dan was a little easier because he started with Minnesota, which became Dallas. So it's kind of the same franchise, really. It's just crossing over. And then obviously the Detroit part was just at the very end. It was that last season. It was kind of a short season. But I acknowledge it. So it's one of those things where I don't pretend it didn't happen, but it's obviously not my favorite part of his career because there wasn't so much going to it. Although I did share with you guys, I think, the story that in his last big free agent signing, he almost ended up going to Boston because Boston had the best deal on the table. And it just came down to the taxes thing. That's really what it was, because Boston had a good deal on the table for him at the time. And it would have been interesting. It was funny. The irony of this is I actually was kind of in favor of it because I knew the Dallas run was coming to an end, because that team had pretty much apexed. It had reached about as far as it was going to get. This was going to be his last big contract. And I figured at that point, Boston was probably better suited to at least take a shot. So if he was going to take a couple more cracks at it, the team was better suited than a team that was going to be rebuilding. They were in the middle of rebuild. So he played a couple of years in a rebuild, and it took many years for them to finally come back around and get to where they were. So he kind of missed the last couple of years of his career. But that's just me. That's me as a player collector looking at it that way.
Yeah, I think I've always kind of had this in me, and I don't know, maybe it hinders some of the collecting, space out there. But I remember, like I've shared the story of Shaq leaving Orlando to go to LA, and when I collect Shaq, I only want him in Orlando uniform. Griffey, I tried to keep my Griffey collection to Mariner uniform. And those were 2 of my big guys that I liked to collect when I was younger. And I guess that was just instilled in me from the get-go. Is I hated when they changed teams, and I didn't want their cards outside of the team that I was cheering for them on. So maybe that's why I can be neutral a bit to the non-logos and that sort of thing, is because, you know, it's about the player, but I only want them in certain teams to begin with. And even if that means skipping a rookie card or whatever, because like I use the example of CJ Abrams, I don't want his rookies if they're Padres. Like, it just, I don't need that. I don't care about him in a Padre uniform. So,
Sure.
I don't know. That's what makes the hobby fun, is so many different ways to go about it.
I think that's fair. So let me kind of turn it around on this, because we'll give Eric a chance to stare down the Bruins a little bit, but because I also wanted to have this conversation. But I think it's straightforward enough. We're all kind of we're open minded, and we've learned some new things today. We learned some hashtag scholarship. It's been good. But let me ask a question here. I'll circle it back around. I'll use, like I said, I'll use that NFL example because I thought it was kind of a fun historical footnote that I think fit very well into this. I think that a lot of what became, I mentioned already, I think that what made us kind of accepting of it as a hobby is because you didn't have a choice for the reasons that I already outlined. So it created a very unique subset. It's like, well, your alternative is there none. So you either take what you can get because this is what it is, or you just say none of these Hall of Fame caliber players had rookie cards, which would be a little awkward. I think most people don't want that. Now, the Wembanyama thing is interesting because obviously we're in the current era, and it is a little bit different. But you do have Panini with the license, of course. But Panini cannot produce rookie year autographs of Wembanyama. So if you're a fan of him and you would like rookie year autograph cards of him, and again, you look at that mock-up. So if you look at so we'll take it from two directions here. If you're just talking about aesthetics, you're just talking about looking at the card. You look at that mock-up and you look at the pose they're using. The pose basically neutralizes the uniform anyway from a logo perspective. So if you're looking at something where if the logo was there, you couldn't see it anyway. You're basically taking that from a design standpoint. And I saw some CJ Stroud as well, some examples of that where you look at it and go like, could you even see the logo on it? Like, that's why I say I used in a previous video, I had done a different Joe Montana example. I used an example of a Leaf Joe Montana, and I used an example of a Topps Joe Montana. The Topps one obviously is fully licensed, and the Leaf one obviously is not. But the angle they use of Joe Montana, so unlike the airbrush example that I just gave you with his rookie, where you can see the side of his helmet enough to know that there's no logo there. But when you take a straight shot of the helmet, you can't see the logo because it's right on the sides. You're looking at straight on. The Leaf one had him facing straight on. The Topps one had him facing straight on. It looked the same. You know one of them's not licensed, and you know the other one is, but the angle that they were both using on the cards for him made them look virtually identical. So you ran into this thing where the Topps one is more expensive than the Leaf equivalent of it. So in this case, if you just want you want a Joe Montana autograph, you can get one on the cheap here, and the aesthetic is identical. You're not sacrificing anything. You're doing some weird airbrushing or some nonsense to make it look different. No, you look at the two and they fit. So the question is, in the long run, with something like this, given that these are the circumstances we're under today, not unlike the football in the 70s, does the market then become more accepting of this card? Even if you don't want to call it the rookie card, fine, just call it a rookie or auto card or what. Look, whatever you want to call it, it's not my problem. It's not my job to classify it. But I'm saying I feel like it's going to hold a little more water for the Wembanyama fan who has everything else, has got the licensed rookie card, but wants the autograph one. They want the autograph one because there's only one rookie year where you can get that. And if Topps is providing it and that's the card you can get, I think it's going to help the card.
I'm going to throw something else out, and, not to go too deep into this, but we're also in a unique situation here. And you mentioned, before times it was the only option and all of that. And we are in a transitional period, but we're in a transitional period of two sports where you mentioned the Wembanyama and the rookie auto.
Mm-hmm.
What is the need for that card when there's the Bowman U or the Bowman's vest or whatever in those autos? Because in baseball, as we know, we have the first Bowmans and we have the first Bowman autos, and that's the cards that most people choose to go after for players for their autographs. But that throws in another wrench because those cards are airbrushed of those players with MLB uniforms on, whereas the NFL and the NBA ones will likely have to continue being their collegiate counterpart because they don't have, they do, but they're not utilized. Like the stars don't go to the minor leagues in those two sports. So are we talking kind of this change of guard anyway, where it's becoming a moot point of licensing because a lot of the cards that may historically, if you go off of based on baseball, maybe the sought after versions may not be professionally licensed cards to begin with if people become accepting of the first Bowman autos, which could be a non-professionally licensed card anyway.
I think it's a possibility. I think the reason why it's kind of an open question is a lot of it really depends on how you feel about it. That's the reason why I wanted to kind of open the question up and pose it, because again, so I'll quickly just outline my position as a collector. I don't care. From my perspective, look, you want to color a rookie card, that's fine. You don't want to color a rookie card because it, doesn't meet your sensibilities. I'm completely okay with that too. The NFL example was fun because it's a historical, unique situation. It's kind of a unique edge case that obviously we've all accepted in the long run. Like you ask the hobby, those cards I showed you, you ask them if it's a rookie card, the people say yes. They don't really spend a lot of time debating it, so it's not an issue that way. But it's only because of historical circumstance. It's not because the league and the players association and Topps went out of its way to create Topps would have happily put logos on it if the situation had been right. They just didn't want to pay for those rights, or maybe Fleer outbid them, or whatever the historical case was. Something happened and they weren't able to get both licenses simultaneously. But we accepted it because that's what it was. Today, obviously, we do have options. And to your point, we've got more options than ever before, because we can go like, how, as a collector, what I guess what it comes down to is this: as a collector, what do you value? And my contention was, as a collector, I value the aesthetic. I value what is interesting to me. So the unlicensed does not offend me under the right circumstances. But this is a big important caveat I will put on this. Big important caveat. If you offer me the licensed one with the equivalent patch or autograph or whatever, and the unlicensed one with the equivalent patch, autograph, or whatever, if they're right beside each other and they're equal, I will pay less for the unlicensed one. I'm not going to pay an equivalent amount. I will discount it appropriately, because for my dollar, I still feel like I don't want to pay the equivalent amount. But that's me, just as a personal stance. But I will not reject it. It still has a place in my collection. I'm still interested under the right circumstances. I just price it accordingly, if that makes sense.
But yeah, the product's going to be cheaper, so the card
and I will treat it as such,
cheaper.
and I will just treat it as such.
Yeah.
So I will not pay an equivalent premium.
Right.
But to me, if I can get a great deal on it, I will not reject it. It can be in the collection, no problem.
Leaf has gone about business for years, without a license, and sometimes they have the players' faces, sometimes they just have like the back of their jersey, or something. But a lot of times over the years, even though there's tons of memorabilia and sticker autos and all that, the cards themselves sometimes just have not been very good looking. My biggest complaint right now with Leaf, of course, is they keep using the same photo on every single thing. I'm a player collector. I collect Reggie Lemlin. They just put out 100 new Reggie Lemlin cards this year in their product, and it's the same freaking picture on every single card, and it's one they've been using for years.
I assumed they were using the same picture of the same leprechaun. I thought that was the part you were offended by.
That's a whole nother thing. That just goes back to them just being ridiculous. But I mean, that part bothers me. When you get a licensed product, you're getting professional photographers who are going out to games and taking these pictures and they're buying their photos, or Upper Deck has Upper Deck photographers possibly going to games specifically for this, or whatever they do. It's every card is going to have a different picture on it, and year after year, and things, and even some of the subsets are going to have different pictures and things. So that's where the important part is of having a license. You know, I hate the fact that to collect my favorite player, I'm buying the same card over and over and over and over and over again with a different shimmer or background or whatever, and with the same sticker auto. They were probably all came off the same sheet. And I'd much rather have something on card with a different photo, every year. That's just I'd much rather collect that.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. So what I'll do, Brandon, if you got any last thoughts on it, feel free to throw them out, and then I'll kind of wind her down for us in this episode so we can get going. We wanted to have a little fun conversation with you all. By the way, there's no wrong answer on this. We just thought it was a fun conversation, open-ended. And like I said, I don't have any. I used Victor's video as the impetus, the launch-off point to this. I don't mind his reasoning. I think it's perfectly fair. I just think there's been a lot of interesting historical outliers that it's always murky, and every situation is its own beast. And so I gave one example of one and some other examples of some other stuff that has come across the pipeline. And you kind of got to decide for yourself. But at the same time, to be consistent, I've never worried about the rookie card definition myself that much. If I'm collecting the player and I want the cards, and I'm collecting the cards, all right, they're rookies, they're not rookie. It's a rookie or it's not. I got one in the collection anyway. You can decide for yourself. I don't care. It's a rookie year card. It happens to show the player and it's in the collection and it fits. And I've got ones that are considered rookie cards because it's got the logo and all that fancy stuff. So I got both. So it's perfectly fine.
I'll tell you my thoughts on it. And this comes from readjusting back to just trying to have fun in the hobby and getting back to where my place is of what is fun for me. And what you were saying, in terms of what is, what isn't, for those that hold that much importance to what is or what isn't, and that's what they want to collect or put the value into and that sort of thing. There's so many different ways to do this. So that's all fine. But I've actually accepted the fact that it is not important to me to have the rookie anymore. It's not about whether or not I have a player's rookie card or what is considered the rookie of the player. What's important to me is that I like the card. And I watched a video a few weeks back, or probably a couple months ago now, that Flippin' Steve did, and he was talking about vintage, and he popped up a bunch of the vintage rookies, and he had mentioned something in there about like when he started getting into vintage, realizing how much those cards cost and how it can become very expensive very quickly. And it's always made me wonder, like, when people are collecting vintage, if you want like a Bill Russell or whomever out there, why is it such an attraction to go to like the 54 tops for Hank Aaron? Because realistically, that's not even nowhere close to his best card. Aesthetically, the presentation of it, the photo, it's nowhere close to his best looking card. But
all right, make the call out. What's his best looking card? Let's go.
His funnest card is the 57, where he's batting left-handed.
57. Ooh, interesting.
I'm not saying that's his best. I think the 56s are awesome because of like that the whole imagery there.
I'm a fan of 56.
May not like them. But you get my point. It's an orange card, and it looks like it's cut wrong and all of this. It's not even anywhere close to what Hank's best card would be. And but yet it's ingrained in us that we have to have this rookie card. And I have allowed myself now to realize I don't need the rookie card. I need the card that I enjoy the most. And, you know, if you're a rookie collector, that's your thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm allowing myself to be way more open-minded and hunt cards that I actually enjoy, not just what is hobby right, I guess you could say. So not what Beckett tells us we have to do.
Beckett, the doctor. Oh no, terrible. Just terrible. On this scandalous bombshell, Eric. That will conclude BIC episode number 74. We've got a lot to mull over and think about. So I want to thank Brandon, his takes, Bobbles and Ball Cards, 540 flips. You can send hate mail and your love, undying love of 54 tops, Hank Aaron's to Sanderson to Orr on Instagram. Again, Eric will filter through those for you. He'll personally answer and respond to every single one of those hateful takes. A lot of anger in you, no doubt. And just remember the most important thing. Between 1970 tops O.J. Simpson and 1981 Joe Montana, none of them are rookie cards. Your lives are lies.
The set registry is fake.
It's all fake. None of it's a rookie card, Eric. There are no rookie. Eric, the rookie card does not even exist. It's not even a thing. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination. That's it. We're done. So anyway, hopefully you folks enjoyed the discussion in the tongue-in-cheek way which it was done, and maybe you learned something. Maybe you learned something you didn't know, because that was kind of a fun little historical footnote. Again, I will include a link in the description to the article. It is fascinating. There's a little more background on there as well as to why and what was going on during that time period. I do recommend, if you are interested, read it. Check it out, because it was a Sports Collectors Digest back in the days when they wrote articles. So this is an opportunity to read one of those articles, and they were nice enough to give a little background and give you a little history. And if you are interested, you can go down the rabbit hole and check it out some more. But I'll include a link to that in the description for you, along with all the other things we usually include. So thanks everybody for checking this one out. That's it for us this time around. Leave the thumbs up for the engagement. Eric always appreciates that. And like if you like the video, more videos coming up on the channel. Subscribe to the channel, and we will catch you in the next one.